The late afternoon sun filtered through the blinds of the rental car as it turned down the familiar cul-de-sac. Eric Myers gripped the wheel tighter than necessary, knuckles pale. He hadn't driven this road in nearly 8 months, and yet every mailbox, every cracked sidewalk slab still lived in his memory. Home, or what used to be. He was back a month earlier than expected, the military operation wrapping with minimal losses. A blessing, they said. He hadn't told Lena or anyone else. He wanted to surprise them, to see his boy's face light up, to wrap his arms around his wife and feel, even for a moment, that something in this world was still his. The car rolled to a stop in front of the white colonial house with the red shutters, the one he bought with his deployment bonus 5 years ago. It looked the same, almost too perfect, but something in the air, a shift he couldn't name, made the hair on his arms rise. He grabbed his duffel bag, slung it over his shoulder, and walked to the front door. His dog tag brushed against his chest, cold beneath his shirt. He hesitated before inserting the key. A smile tugged at his lips despite his unease. This would be the moment. He pictured Owen running down the hallway, shrieking, "Daddy!" He pictured Lena's tearful embrace, her hands tracing the lines of his face. He turned the key. The smell hit him first, not the warm scent of cinnamon and laundry like before, but something damp, mixed with expensive cologne. Music played faintly from the hallway speaker, Lena's playlist, but turned louder than she usually liked. A pair of sneakers lay neatly beside the staircase. Not his. Eric stepped inside, closing the door quietly behind him. He heard the water running from the master bathroom. His steps were silent, precise, muscle memory from too many nighttime patrols. He dropped the bag at the foot of the stairs. Past the family photo on the wall, Owen's smile wide, his arms wrapped around both dads. It made him pause. His brows furrowed. The bathroom door opened, steam spilled out, and then Tom, wearing only a towel, droplets running down his chest, hair wet, freshly showered. Eric froze. Tom froze. Neither spoke for a beat too long. Then, from down the hall, a tiny voice pierced the moment. Beth. Eric turned, heart soaring, until he saw the boy run past him, straight into Tom's arms. Owen clung to Tom's neck and whispered with the brutal honesty only a child could deliver, "I told you he's not Daddy." "He's my real daddy." Eric's stomach dropped, a pulse roared in his ears. Behind them, Lena appeared at the hallway entrance, barefoot and wearing one of Eric's old T-shirts. "It's not what you think," she said. But Eric had already stopped listening. Eric didn't remember leaving the house. His feet moved, his body acted, but his mind was somewhere else, stuck in that hallway, trapped in the echo of Owen's innocent declaration, "You're my real daddy." The door had shut behind him, but the words kept repeating, digging deeper. He walked past the neighbor's hydrangeas he once helped trim, past the sidewalk where Owen scraped his knee and Lena rushed out in a panic. Everything around him looked unchanged, but now it felt artificial, like a dream staged for someone else's comfort, not his. His phone buzzed in his pocket. It was Lena. He let it ring. Then again, he powered it off. Eric wandered until he found himself standing outside the local diner, the same one he and Lena used to frequent before Owen was born. Inside, the same waitress from years ago gave him a surprised look and a tentative smile. He nodded back and took a booth near the window. The coffee tasted like ash. That was when he saw him. Two women at the far corner table. One of them glanced at him, then leaned in to whisper something. Both looked away quickly when he met their gaze. The second woman, a PTA mom he vaguely recognized from preschool drop-offs, mouthed a small sorry before turning her back. That's when it hit him. They knew not just Lena, not just Tom, the town, the playground parents, the neighbors who waved, the mailman who joked about Owen's resemblance to Tom. How long had this lie been paraded in plain sight? His mind flipped back to things he had once dismissed. Tom bringing Owen to daycare while Eric was overseas. Lena had said it was easier that way. The Christmas card last year, Tom and Lena standing side by side, Owen between them, Eric, a distant photo in uniform tucked in the corner. A memory bubbled up. Owen pointing at a framed photo on the mantel, saying, "That's Daddy," but not pointing at him. Pointing at Tom, and Eric, blind, stupid, loyal, had laughed it off. The shame came next, thick and cloying. How could he not have seen it? He reached into his jacket pocket, fingers brushing the cool metal of his dog tag. A habit, a tether. The weight of duty, honor, service. All those years away, thinking he was doing right by his family, only to return and find he'd been erased, overridden. The bell above the diner door jingled, casual, like he had the right to be there. Eric, he said, approaching the booth like this was just another awkward sibling moment. Eric didn't respond. He stared out the window. I didn't want it to happen like this. Eric let out a sharp breath of air, almost a laugh. You didn't want it to happen like this, he repeated, voice low. But it did. Tom sat down, uninvited. I never meant to hurt you. Just destroy my marriage, confuse my son, live in my house. Tom looked down. I didn't plan any of it. We were both lonely. She thought you might not come back. I did come back. I know. And I'm sorry. But Owen, he knows me. Eric's jaw tightened. Tom went on, you were gone a long time. He needed someone. The implication was clear. I was there. You weren't. Eric's hand curled into a fist on the table, but he forced himself to breathe. You think that makes you his father? Tom hesitated. I don't know, but I love him. Eric stood. You don't get to talk about love. Not after this. As he turned to leave, Tom said something that stopped him cold. She filed for divorce weeks ago. Eric's throat dried. She didn't tell you? No, she hadn't. Eric walked out of the diner into a world he no longer recognized, where the ground beneath him shifted with every step. Everything was unraveling, and he was only just beginning to pull the thread. The first thing Eric did when he got back to his rented motel room was stare at the ceiling. Sleep didn't come. He lay there rigid, eyes tracing the water stains overhead, listening to the muffled sounds of passing traffic and late-night voices outside. Every time he blinked, he saw his son's face, not just his smile, his eyes. And now, with painful clarity, he saw the resemblance, not to himself, but to Tom. The cheekbones, the slant of the eyes when he laughed, the way he furrowed his brow when concentrating. He wasn't imagining it anymore. The next morning, Eric went to the pharmacy and picked up a DNA test. He hated himself for doing it, resented the very idea of reducing his child, his boy, to a sequence of letters in a sealed envelope. But there was no other choice. Trust was dead, and clarity was the only weapon left. He waited 2 agonizing days. Time passed like syrup, thick and slow. He spent most of it pacing, looking at photos on his phone. Owen in the park, Owen with cake on his face, Owen in Halloween costumes, moments that now felt like they belonged to someone else's life. On the 3rd day, the result arrived. Paternity excluded. Eric felt nothing at first, then everything at once. It wasn't just pain. It was a severing, like someone had sliced through the anchor lines tying him to reality. It wasn't the lack of blood that crushed him. It was the fact that no one told him, that they let him stay in the dark, clinging to a dream already rotted from the inside. Even Lena, especially Lena. They had slept in the same bed after she filed for divorce. She had held him, kissed him, told him she missed him. And all the while, she knew. Later that day, Eric walked the edges of town, ending up near the elementary school just as the children were being picked up. He didn't expect to see them, but there they were. Lena standing beside Tom's pickup truck. Owen skipping toward them with a backpack nearly his size. Owen spotted him first. "Daddy," he called out. Eric's heart jumped despite everything. He smiled, instinctively crouching to greet him, but then stopped cold when Owen ran right past him, straight into Tom's arms. Tom lifted the boy effortlessly, spinning him. Lena stood beside them, eyes wide with guilt. Owen looked back at Eric, then frowned in confusion. "Where's my other daddy?" The question made something crack inside. Eric turned and walked away without answering. He didn't trust himself to speak. That night, he received an envelope shoved under his motel room door. It was old, yellowed at the corners. Inside, a letter. The handwriting was familiar, shaky, elegant. It was from his mother. He hadn't spoken to her in nearly a year. Distance and deployment had made things complicated, but the letter must have been written months ago. If you're reading this, then the truth finally found you, and for that, I am so sorry. I never wanted you to learn it like this. Tom isn't your brother by blood. He was taken in when he was 2. Your father's sister had a breakdown and couldn't care for him. We adopted him quietly. Too quietly, I see now. We thought we were doing what was best. But Tom always knew. Somehow, he always felt the difference. And I think that difference made him want what you had. The name, the attention, the certainty. He loved you, but he also envied you. Be careful, Eric. Sometimes love and envy become the same thing in the wrong person's heart. Eric reread the letter 3 times, each line cutting deeper than the last. Tom's resentment, The subtle slights growing up, the backhanded compliments, the mimicry. It all made sense now. This wasn't just betrayal. It was premeditated envy dressed in brotherhood. The next morning, Eric went back to the house, not to speak, just to sit. Lena answered the door. She looked tired, makeup free, hair tied back in a messy bun. The glamour was gone, and for the first time in years, she looked like the girl he fell in love with. The girl who used to draw constellations on his shoulder while he slept. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked. She didn't pretend not to understand. "I wanted to so many times, but you were out there in danger. I didn't want to destroy you while you were still fighting. I was fighting for you." Tears welled in her eyes. "I know, and that's what made it worse." Silence fell. "Not in love, Tom," she whispered. "Not at first. I was lonely. You were always somewhere else. And he was here." He listened. Eric's jaw tightened. "You let me believe he was mine. You were his father in every way that mattered." "No," Eric said coldly. "I was your placeholder, your backup plan. And I don't know what's worse, what you did or the fact that everyone let it happen." Lena stepped back, defeated. "I filed for divorce," she said quietly, "because I didn't want you to be the one to walk away. I wanted to set you free." But all Eric felt was caged. As he turned to leave, Owen appeared behind her, clutching a toy airplane. "Daddy?" he asked, confused. Eric looked down at him for a long silent moment, then finally spoke. "I'll see you soon, buddy," and walked away. Eric hadn't intended to come back to the playground. It was late afternoon, the air thick with the scent of grass and warm asphalt. Children's laughter floated through the air like birdsong, punctuated by the rhythmic squeak of a rusted swing. He sat on a bench alone, his military ID still tucked in the pocket of his jacket, though he hadn't worn the uniform in days. He scanned the faces around him instinctively, a habit from combat tours. Threat assessment never left the bones. But there were no enemies here, just a small boy in a red hoodie clambering awkwardly up a jungle gym. His boy. Owen. For a moment, Eric just watched. The sun caught the child's hair, turning it to fire. He moved with the kind of joyful chaos only a 4-year-old could master. And then he spotted Eric. He hesitated. Then ran, "Daddy." Eric stood, heart stumbling in his chest, catching the boy mid-leap. For one breathless second, it felt like nothing had changed, that he was still the father. Owen remembered. But then Owen pulled back slightly. "Are you staying this time?" he asked. Eric's grip loosened. He knelt down. "I wish I could, buddy. Mommy said you don't live here anymore." "I know. Did I do something bad?" The words landed like a bullet. Eric shook his head quickly, pulling the boy close again. "No, Owen. You didn't do anything wrong. This is between grown-ups. It's complicated." Owen said nothing. He just rested his small hand over the dog tag hanging from Eric's neck, fingers tracing the engraved letters. "Is this yours?" he asked. Eric nodded. "It has my name on it." "Can I have one too?" Eric hesitated. "Someday, maybe." Back at the motel, he opened his laptop and started filling out forms. Legal ones, custody petitions, visitation requests, letters to attorneys he hadn't met yet. He didn't know if he wanted full custody or if he even had a shot, but he knew one thing: he wouldn't vanish from Owen's life, not quietly, not without trying. And then, just as he closed the screen, his phone lit up with a message from Lena. "We need to talk, please." It's about Owen. No emotion, just those 7 words, enough to pull him back. They met at a coffee shop the next morning, neutral territory. Eric arrived first. He didn't touch his coffee. When Lena entered, she looked like she hadn't slept. She sat down, avoiding his eyes for a long time. "I think something's wrong with Tom," she said finally. Eric stared. "Define wrong." "He's not himself. He yells at Owen, at me, over little things." Eric didn't speak. She continued. "The other night, Owen spilled juice on the carpet. Tom grabbed his arm too hard. I saw the bruise the next day." Eric's jaw clenched. "You think he's hurting him?" "I don't know. Maybe not yet. But he's close. He's frustrated. He feels trapped." "And what do you feel?" Lena's lip trembled. "Guilty. Like I made all the wrong choices for all the wrong reasons." Eric leaned in. "Then help me fix it." Her eyes widened. What are you saying?" "I'm saying we go to court. You testify. You tell the judge what you just told me. That Tom's unstable, that I have a right to be in my son's life. You'll take him away from me?" "I'll protect him," Eric said. "From the man you let into my home, from this mess you built around a 4-year-old. 2 nights later, Eric picked up Owen for a weekend visit the court had finally allowed. They drove an hour out of town to a quiet roadside motel surrounded by pine trees. No cartoons, no noise, just silence and cool air. That night, Eric sat on the edge of the motel bed, listening to Owen breathe beside him. The boy curled against his side, asleep, hand still loosely wrapped around the chain of Eric's dog tag. Eric stayed awake, staring into the dark. He thought of his own father, a man of silence and rules, not warmth. He thought of all the things he never got to say to his son before the truth collapsed around them. How much he had wanted to be a hero in Owen's eyes, a protector, a constant. And now he didn't know who he was. A ghost in a broken family, a shadow trailing behind a boy who called someone else Dad. Owen stirred. Daddy, he murmured sleepily. Yeah, bud, you're kind, but you're sad. Eric didn't move. Why do you think that? Because you always smile with your mouth, but not your eyes. Eric closed his eyes. He didn't respond. Owen whispered again, voice barely audible. Daddy Tom laughs loud, but sometimes he yells when I hide. Eric opened his eyes, wide awake, and in that moment he made the decision he would fight. Not for revenge, for Owen, no matter the outcome. The courtroom was colder than Eric expected, sterile, quiet, unforgiving. He sat in the second row, hands folded tightly, suit pressed but wrinkled at the elbows. His dog tag, now on a smaller chain, lay hidden inside his shirt. Owens, he decided. He could see Lena 2 rows ahead, flanked by her lawyer. She didn't look at him. And Tom wasn't there. His absence felt like both an insult and a surrender. The judge's voice was calm but firm, reading through statements, witness remarks, psychological evaluations. Eric had read them all already. Lena's quiet testimony had helped, but not enough. Not in this town. Not with the bias of biology and domestic status weighing the scale. He didn't need to hear the verdict to know the outcome. Full custody remained with Lena, supervised visitation, once a week. No overnights, not yet. Eric's lawyer leaned over. It could have been worse. Eric said nothing. The parking lot outside the courthouse shimmered with heat. Lena caught up to him as he reached his truck. I didn't want it this way, she said softly. He turned, but you let it happen. Her face twisted with something between shame and exhaustion. You're not the same man I married. I was never allowed to be. She didn't respond. Eric looked down at his hand, the envelope he held, the one the judge had given him after the ruling. Inside was the list of supervised centers, cold, impersonal places with toys locked in cabinets and observation windows. And I want him to know who I am, he said, his voice low, not just remember me through glass. You still can, not like this. She looked down, and for the first time in months, her voice broke. He still calls you Daddy. Eric said nothing. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out the dog tag. He held it out to her. Give this to him. When he's older and he can understand. Then I took it slowly, eyes wide. You giving up? I'm letting go. He didn't clarify what that meant, not for her. But in his chest, he felt the fracture of a decision he could never unmake. 3 days later, Eric sat in the front seat of his truck, engine running, motel key resting on the dashboard. Owen's laughter echoed from the nearby playground, distant but distinct. He didn't get out. He watched from the window, sunglasses hiding his eyes. Then slowly, deliberately, he placed a small package on the passenger seat. Inside, a photo of the 3 of them from that picnic years ago, before everything fell apart. Before the questions, before the courtrooms, he tucked a note behind the frame. Blood doesn't define family, time does. I'll always be your father if you want me to be. Then he drove away. Later that week, Owen opened the package with Lena at his side. He didn't understand the photo at first or the note, but he held the dog tag tightly. And years later, when he would ask questions about why one dad was always near but never home, Lena would hand him that chain. He would wear it under his shirt the way Eric did, and maybe, just maybe, he'd go looking. Indeed.